All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Oath of Gold by Elizabeth Moon. This is book number 3 in her Deeds of Paxenarian trilogy of novels. I've previously reviewed Sheep Farmer's Daughter, book number 1, and also Divided Allegiance, book number 2. Now we are at book number 3 in the trilogy. By the way, my favorite book in the trilogy, and actually this is actually a really dope trilogy to be. Now it came out in 1989. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. It's got a great cover by Todd Lockwood. In fact, I think all of the covers here were by Todd Lockwood. And, you know, when you put the books on the shelf, all the spines match, so it looks nice on the shelf. You don't have the goofy mismatched books. So that is good. So let's talk about this book number 3. Came out in 1989, I think I said. Paxenarian is the sheep farmer's daughter who wanted a better life for herself than just... She wanted to be a soldier. She didn't want to marry the pig farmer's son down the road. She's from a small village in this fantasy land. And so she leaves against the wishes of her family. She kind of runs away, actually, to join the army and become a soldier in the army. And that's where we those are the first couple books. The first book is her training in the army, her first few adventures in the army. The second book, things get a little bit more embroiled. Things, she starts to settle herself into some of the ranks of the army, having more adventures, getting more things happen to her. And if you want to watch the reviews of these first 2 books before you get too far into this one, all you need to do is type in my last name, Durfee, into your YouTube search bar, and then type in Elizabeth Moon's name into the YouTube search bar. And these, the video reviews for books 1 and 2 will magically appear on your screen, your television screen. I don't know how that happens. I think it's some sort of pagan witchcraft that happens, but somehow they will just appear. But anyway, let's get into the book number 3. The landscape, the world building of this is pretty vast. It really, really reminds me of a gritty, grim version of Middle Earth. Because we've got, elves, dwarves, orcs, dragons. We've got all the things, all the different character classes that you would find in Middle Earth or Dungeons and Dragons in these books, with a very high fantasy setting wherein, it's just got wizards, warlocks, knights in shining armor, people riding glorious horses, big battles, and then just the nitty-gritty of the everyday life of a soldier. Gosh, it's kind of a cross between like the Lord of the Rings and Glenn Cook's Black Company, or even the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but just with more of a high fantasy Middle Earth setting that's very gorgeous to travel through. So anyway, like I said, we follow her through her adventures in the first 2 books. We open as she's returning to a town that she's visited before, and she's had trouble in this town before. She comes to, she's healing from, clearly the character Paxenarian, this young lady, I forgot to tell you, at the beginning of the first book, she's just a teenager. And in this book, she's not that much older than a teenager. But a lot of things have happened to her. She's had falling out with her army buddies. She's had a lot of different people hunting her. A lot of different things are going on. And she's healing. She enters this town that she's been to before, and you can clearly tell she's healing not only from some physical wounds that she's experienced in battle, but also from some mental wounds. She's got some PTSD. She's scarred in a lot of ways. And she tells the healer of her... I'm going to change glasses because I can't see a damn thing. I try to watch myself in the camera, But if I'm blurry, I can't see if I'm holding this up correctly or not. Okay, so anyway, she tells the healer that's in the village of her wounds and her story so far, which is a good way for Elizabeth Moon, like if you have your main character go into a therapy session and tell the therapists at the beginning of the book everything that's happened to her in a life that's up. It's a good way to do a quick synopsis of the first two books. I was like, that's pretty clever, Elizabeth Moon. I like that. So it's a great writing device. So there's deep discussions in this book of bravery, what it means to be a warrior or a strong-willed person just in general. There's a lot of deep philosophical, it's much deeply, and I can't speak English today. What's wrong with me? It's a deeply more philosophical book. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. This book has more philosophical discussions than the other two books. I felt like I think that's what I was going for. She joins a group of after she goes through therapy, and it's not like really therapy. It's she's talking to the healer. But after that, she joins a group of rangers, which is cool because she's a knight, and then she goes out to join these rangers. Eventually, the questions of the novel are: will she go back to being a soldier? Will she remain a ranger? Is she really a paladin with supernatural gifts? What's going on? I mean, all of these questions kind of get answered towards the end of this adventure. And it's just a series of, I always kind of think of the Deeds of Paxenarian, the three books as a whole. It's one of the first, like, literal, this came out in the early 1989, the late 80s. And it's literally laid out like a lot of your lit RPG progression fantasies, where you see the character level up as she goes from a new recruit as a soldier to ranking up in the army, and then leaving the army, doing other things, having a lot of different problems, fighting different levels of monsters as she goes. And towards the end, is she going to be the paladin, the magical paladin that saves all? That's the question. Great book. This was probably my favorite in the series. I'd probably rank them. This one my first favorite. The Deeds of Paxton, the very first book, next, and then book 2 is, But I'm going to give this a solid, I want to get it close to 10. I'm going to say 9.75 out of 10, I'm thinking, for Oath of Gold.